Bear with me. Parshas metzora, as we hurtle towards Pesach, Zeman Cheresenu, Zeman Geulosenu. You're listening to 11 Heard each and every Thursday evening on WSNR 620 AM radio. It's also archived on, if you have a heter for the internet, and everybody, every shmigegi obviously has a heter for the internet because our good is busy tweeting and schmeeding all of their chanferai and all of their fake news, etc., as are all the other meisters, from Satma to Lubavitch, they're all there. So why can't we also use the internet for morality? And that's exactly what we're doing. These programs are supposedly, I hope, that they're still being archived on our somewhat deficient phone line, but something is better than nothing, and I hope that one day my friend Reb Michoel will actually be able to help me and get a good hotline. If there's somebody else out there who can help me get a more sophisticated hotline that people can control with pausing and going backwards and forwards, I understand this hotline is not the best, then please do so. Please contact me, rabbi11@gmail.com after Pesach, and let's try to get this thing going. It's also, as I said, archived on the hotline number 641-715-3900, 641-715-3900, extension 247656. You can again see all the archive programs on YouTube, on 11, LEVIN, numeral 11, that's my channel, or rabbi.zone. I already made the bracha, so l'chaim tov l'shalom. And we have, as usual, we have an interesting program today. I would like to begin with l'chaim to wish a mazel tov to myself. Can't be anything better than that, to myself, to my family, upon the engagement. The vort was held last night of Yosef Aryeh Levin, my oldest son, to Chana Walk. May this be a kesher chayama and a binyan ad ad. May they be a source of Yiddish nachas to their families and to all of Klal Yisrael. A little later in the program, I am going to tell you a Devar Torah that has to do with Pesach and that ties in homiletically with my my simcha. But first, let me begin as follows. In my last few programs, the Purim program, I did a skit. And the skit was a skit it was a history within a skit. And the history is that in the mid to later 1980s, maybe 1987 or something like that, I think it was, I got on my then radio program and I said that people have to be careful to instruct their children how not to be touched inappropriately and what to do if they are. And I used the term because there are tens of molesters in the world of chinuch. I think that statistically I was probably correct. And if I was making somewhat of an exaggeration at the time, in the ensuing years, believe me, you would have been tens of molesters in the 35 or 32 years since a third of a century since I made that statement. And there were definitely molesters. As a matter of fact, several years later at an arts office, after their meeting, a few Rabbi Millerite people had arranged a meeting with Rav Elia Svei Zitzal and myself, and Rav Elia Svei told me, I accomplished more than you did with all your tumults. I pattered 2 Rabbeim. If anything, Rav Elia Munach was bringing a raya to what I said, that there are molesters. And why is it? As the Chazal tell us, there used to be a cartoon named Pogo. It was a cultural icon, and the most famous statement that Pogo made was, we have met the enemy and he is us, which is really a spin-off on all of our problems they're sourced in ourselves. When we don't do the right things, so that's what happens. When we turn the other cheek to immorality and we vote and support politicians, honor them, and go visit them in Washington, their offices, etc., etc., so Hashem says, you don't care about my instructions of your side, In other words, would you visit those same politicians? Would you honor them? Would you vote for them if they smacked up your mother or father? If they costed you a $50 ticket to clean up the chametz before Pesach, a special assessment on you? Of course you would say, what? I have to pay extra money? Yes, you have to pay extra money because there's extra chametz pickup. Oh, I'll never vote for that politician again. But if they're only insulting your God and everything else, then you're perfectly fine with it. Anyhow, at that meeting, as I told you, near the conclusion of the meeting, I told the distinguished Rosh Yeshivas, many of whom are no longer alive, it's a new generation now, this was a third of a century ago, I said that there is a movement, and it's going to take time, that there's going to come a day when prostitution will be legalized in New York. It was already then legalized in certain areas of Nevada. And I said, when that happens, and the Zionists will be waiting at 18th Avenue and McDonald to solicit the menfolk, and will be able to do nothing about it. It'll be legal. You can't call the police. You can't call the mayor's office, etc., etc. Please don't blame that on the fact that Yehuda Levin was issuing warnings on his radio program. He was turning people off to yeshivas because he said there are molesters. So one of the rabbis said people are going to stop sending their children to yeshiva because you scared them by saying there's molesters in yeshiva. So I guess we should make a giant cover-up. In other words, let's not address the problem of the molesters in yeshiva. Let's blame the messenger. Let's shoot Yehuda Levin. So I told them with respect. I wasn't chutzpahdik, very respectful. Years covered. I was then almost maybe 33 years old or something like that. It was half a lifetime ago. And I told them that one day this is going to happen. Then I made a Purim skit, and I made a skit, tongue-in-cheek, that because it's geld for yeshivas and moistus, ibor olis, over everything else. So therefore, I made a joke that now that there's a movement to legalize marijuana, which has already been done in several states, and there's a national movement, and now that Kamala Harris, amongst others, is trying to legalize prostitution nationally, I made a joke that Aguda was saying, listen, we'll do it tiltul menatzand. We won't do it directly, but we'll have the same balabatim who we sent officially / unofficially when there was a fundraiser at Shlomi the singer's house on East 34th Street in Flatbush many years ago to give $60,000 of Yiddish geld to the lesbian Christine Quinn, who later, quote unquote, married her partner because she was running for mayor. And Rabbi David Zweibel said, oh, this is very good. He made like he didn't know anything about it. It's very good because we have to cover all our bases. You understand? I could just imagine Rav Moshe and Rav Yankov, who was supposed to be in control of Aguda, and this is maybe 2 years after they were nifter, or a year or two after they were nifter. I could just imagine if Rabbi, I'm sorry, my meeting with the Gedolim, I'm sorry, was 2 years after. But I could just imagine if this fundraiser had happened when Rav Moshe and Yaakov was still alive. I could just imagine Rabbi Moshe Shera or Yibod L'chaim, Rabbi David Zweibel going over to Rav Moshe and saying, listen, mir darf sich decken alle Zidodim, weil Tomer, ich mein, Tomer, der Lesbien wird da reingehen als Mayor, darf man haben, aches jesh lonu ba Malchus, darf man dir geben, Sheikhad, Rabbi Yemeshe, Rabbi Yankem, wir sind in Golis. Unfortunately, we are in a diaspora situation, and therefore we find it necessary, Rabbi Feinstein, to cover our bets by making our bet BED with the lesbian who may be mayor, and therefore we've decided to invest $60,000. Is this mutter? And of course, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who gave me Yehuda Levin, because of me, the catalyst he gave to my two agents, Rabbi Lyman and Yibod L'chaim Rafil Handler, based on a letter that I had authored with them, signed by Rev Miller Zitzal, the Linzer Rav Zitzal, the Debretzina Rav Zitzal. He said that he was Eish Lahav against having anything to do with Hashchasa and any Hashchasa legislation. So Avada Gewiss, Reb David Zweibel, Avada Gewiss, Shia Markowitz, Avada Gewiss, Weeder, and all the people who think I'm a weirdo. I'm a weirdo. I hear, but you guys think that you're carrying on the same Agudas Yisrael, the same Teiro Miseda of the Gedolim of yesteryear. So who's the bigger weirdo? Who's the bigger bluffer? Who's the bigger faker? Who's the bigger denier. This is even a bigger avla than a Holocaust denier, because the Holocaust deniers are being done by Goyim. But you're denying essential Torah. You're in denying the metzora. You're denying something of Aleph Beis, as I mentioned in previous programs. That in the 1920s and the 1940s, the average Gentile women dressed with more tznius than the women today with the tightish clothing and the garish schreidike clothing and the lange sheitlich, who are married to people who wear streimels and to yeshiva light. And some of these people are even Rebbetzins who teach in Abbas Yaakovs. In other words, the Yeridus, Hadaris is Pilla Peloyim. And just like most of the Olim can't see the tremendous intrinsic hypocrisy and the tremendous paradox that the Gentile women of the 1940s and 1950s are more tzniistic today than many of the ladies who walk on the streets of 13th Avenue J and who doll themselves up at chasnas to be machshel the men. You understand? The same way, there's a Torah Chadosha, a Britz Chadosha. Yeah, with Raditz Chaim, and Moshe Feinstein, Rav Yankov Kamenetsky, Rabbi Ruderman, they would have said, yeah, midaf gein and machen a fundraiser lechatchila ariba for the lesbian to help give her the money, to give her the, like Marx famously said, the founder of communism, the capitalists will sell us the rope which we will use to hang them. So we were going at the very nascent stages of this lesbian wannabe mayor to be the first, or one of the first, at the beginning of the year to stop her up with money. If you need to see the Chazer Fiesel of Aguda and the errant Rabbi Shera philosophy, because if you would go to David's Weibel, if you would go to the Great Hashkafistas of Aguda, you would go to Avi Shafrin, the grace of tzaddik, you understand? And you would answer, Avada, we follow in the loyal footsteps, Fiasakulam, Agudo Echos, we follow Rabbi Sher's philosophy, it's Torah, Hachai V'Kahayom. Oh yeah, sure, except I pointed out on many, many occasions that there was a big disconnect when it came to morality between Rabbi Sher's Agudas Yisrael and what the bureaucrats did behind the backs of Rav Moshe and Rav Yankov. And when they were approached about abortion, they were Eish Lahava about abortion. And when they were approached about the Geyachts, and mamish, these things happen through me. Rabbi say, if you want to know why I seem to be so excitable and so undignified, it's because I was the catalyst who caused Rav David Eidenson to discuss abortion back in 1984 when I was running for office against Stephen Solarz. And Yaakov Kamenetsky was Eish Lahava. And I was the one that when the whole Kojo Boropak and all the other fine schmeckers were signing on for Stephen Solarz, and I was fighting him because of his liberal views on the morality and other issues. And the whole Kojo with all the moistest was signing up for him. It was Rabbi Moshe Bick who asked his grandchildren to get an absentee ballot to vote for Yehuda Levin, who was infuriated with Rabbi Gluck Sr. for putting down for identification purposes only on a letter in support of Solarz the name of his congregation, whatever it was, B'nai Moshe or whatever it was called. My Reverend Rabbi Sai, I've got the meat. We've got the schayra here, and that's why I'm so upset. So anyhow, to continue in my recounting of history, I warned the Gedolim at that time there was going to come a day with prostitution, and then I made a Purim skit, which those of you who didn't hear it or see it, I know I put it out on the internet, on the WhatsApps. I put out my radio programs, and it would still be posted on my Rabbi Yehuda 11 Live. By the way, if you want to become a member of my WhatsApp, so you WhatsApp me at 718. 469-6999, and you put your name and your full phone number. Don't assume I can't read the number when you WhatsApp me unless you type the full number in, and I will promptly put you on and you will have access, at least going forward. Anyhow, in addition, you could see my previous programs, my internet previous programs of the last few weeks in my Purim or post-Purim skits. Rabbi Sai, I'm trying to explain to you. The fact of the matter is that I said that they're going to use these same balabatim who they used to give money to the lesbian running for mayor. they'll have them start a non-for-profit organization. It'll be called Save the Whales. But since prostitution is legal, so they will fund their Save the Whale efforts by having a house of ill repute, a Beis Zoyna. You understand? It'll be perfectly legal. What do you want? Dina de Malchus Adina. And they'll take 10% of the money and give it to Save the Whales. But the rest, they'll funnel to the Meister so we can build Torah. I was making chayzik of Aguda, but it's a bitter gelechta. It's really true. This is called Loisovi Esnan Zoinu Mechir Kalav. You can't use the wages of sin. If a Zoina received money for her harlotry, and she took that money and donated it to the Beis Hamikdash, you can't do that. Michir Kalev, if you sold your doggy and you say, I want to take the money that I sold my doggy and I want to use that to donate to the Beis Hamikdash for a carbon or something else. It's explicitly a beferish Rebbeinu in the Torah. It's a daraisa. You cannot do it. So I'm asking the question: Yalam Deinu Rabbeinu Torah Hivalil Meidani Tzarich. How come you're allowed to chant for the Rishayim and vote for them and kiss up to them, and in return they give you money for your meisters? Why is that different than Esnan Zoyna Mechir Kelev? Why is it different? I don't know the answer. I wish they used to have the Jewish Observer. They used to have the Hashkafistas writing in the Jewish Observer. I wish they could put out an article. Maybe Rabbi Keller, Zelazangezutten Stark, who's not saying anything about Kalish's ongoing Chilul Hashem in Illinois. Maybe he could write one of those beautiful Hashkafa articles of old. Maybe somebody, a shout out to Chicago, maybe somebody can bring this request. There's a fat, ignoramus dumpling sitting, a malcontent, a grouch, a rabble-rouser, a troublemaker, a person who's mevazim, zalzel, and the Miseder, and the Gedalim, and everything else, named Yehuda Levin. And he says, perhaps Rabbi Keller could explain to us why in Illinois an Aguda group can go now and spend a day with their hero, the new state representative, Simcha Kalish, and eat a kosher lunch, when Simcha Kalish just voted to make homosexuality in all of the textbooks and all of the classes in public school from K to 12. Oh, he says the film is hot nishatim betins. It has nothing to do with us. Isn't kinders and yeshiva? Fine. Oh, fine. So that's how we're doing L'sakin Olav Malchus Shakai. Let the goyim be over and Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Nayach. And of course, it's not going to affect brainwashing them to be pro-homosexual, pro-transgender. And that trickle-down effect won't help us, even if they never come to yeshivas, which any ox, any ferd, any chamor b'lidas, any Chabad, the chamor b'lidas, not Lubavitch, although they could be Lubavitches as well. But they can also be part of Yeshiva, doesn't matter, who thinks that it's not coming to yeshivas, welcome to reality, you know. So ask Rabbi Keller, maybe he can give us the hashkafa behind why this is not Mechir Keller v'Esnan Zoyna. It's a question dangling in the air, and you don't have to go to Chicago. You can go ask it to Rabbi Harari Raful from the Metzora Gedela, to Rabbi Yosef Frankel from the Metzora Gedela, to Rabbi Aaron Schachter from the Metzora Gedela, Torah. You can ask it to the erstwhile Choshev newest members as well. Okay, you can absolutely do that. By the way, I'm holding up to those who are seeing this on the YouTube. I'm holding up this beautiful refurbished i6 telephone that I now have. I've been having problems from February 11th. It's now April 11th. And Baruch Hashem, it's not completely done, but I actually have the phone thanks to Ari Rossman and thanks to the people who donated money because of my financial situation. They have a chelik in the good things that I tried to do with the telephone. And similarly, I'm asking people, this is a mitzvah that is laying in the ground. If somebody picks up a mitzvah that's laying in the ground, they receive schar kineged kulam for all the people who didn't pick up the mitzvah. My second l'chaim. Rabbi say, This program, make a cheshbon, who is saying these things publicly? There are thousands of people who hear this on the radio. I'm going out there at the Vart. Many people from the younger generation are hearing and seeing my stuff. I believe that I'm alive today, despite my failures in various areas of Yiddishkeit. In Midos, and I mean it seriously, ich lerne es wie ich darf. Ich bin nicht a großer Bal Midas. I believe that I'm being kept alive. That my schus is because of affirmative action. Because if you chap a mitzvah that nobody is doing, you dust it off and you pick it up from the ground. Hisnari me offer kumi. Live she big de sephartech ami. You don it and you dress it up with the stolz, with the splendor of Klal Yisrael based on Torah values. I believe your noitel schar keneged kulam. And for pennies, Rabbi say, there are people out there listening tonight who themselves have the means. It's nothing for them to give me $100 or $200 a week to sponsor this program. 2 such sponsors, and it's a done deal. And imagine the schar they would get for all of this teichacha, for all of this mecha. It's arbitrage. It's the best investment. There's a particular person who runs a non-for-profit organization. He's a big chassid of mine. I've sent him messages. Please do something. Help out. Please help me out. I'm not asking to make money on this program from anybody. I want to cover the expenses. So far, it's spitting in the wind. It just comes back to hit me in the face. Oy vey vey. Look at this, a 64-year-old man. I'm avazing myself, begging Am Yisrael. There's money for every conceivable thing. There's money for Kirv Kurachoikim, Ad Ein Shir. And what about this? Rabbi say, isn't this Kirv Kuroivim? Doesn't that count also? Rabbi say, we need Kirv Kuroivim. Don't you understand? After 120 years, when we'll come up to the Shemayim, the fact that there were some voices, Yechidim, Baididim, out there screaming and yelling, we are a bechina, those handful of us that are doing this of shluchei tzibur. When I do it, I'm doing it in the name of liyachet shem yudkei bevavchei b'yechuda shlim b'shem kol Yisrael. When I do the mitzvah, it's like I do tefillin, or I do any other mitzvah, I say l'shem yechuda b'shem kol Yisrael. So when you get up, sister Shemaim, you can say that Meshugana, that fat dumpling, Yehuda Levin, the Meshugana, he was ranting and raving. And but maybe in this thing, he gave us coverage. Please, I'm asking you to email me at rabbilevin@gmail.com. We have to find a way of an ongoing funding of this program. I'm now on on 2 credit cards, 15 grand in the red. They're charging me 18 to 19% interest, $150 a month, and starting next month, it's going to be around $250 a month, or more, just in interest payments, largely to do this program. Again and again, I appeal to people. I need help. I need advertisements. Now, many people will not advertise. You know why? I know why. Because it's a controversial program. Who wants to get the opprobrium? Who wants to get the criticism? Who wants to be blasted by the rest of society? Of course, if I blast the powers that be here, and then some grocery store decides to advertise, because it makes a lot of sense to advertise with Levin, because this is the most provocative, in-your-face Jewish radio program. Many people don't have televisions. They don't have internets. This is their source of information. And meaning no disrespect to the erstwhile Zeb Brenner or to the Bukharin rabbi and his road from Persia or Bukharin or whatever it is, or to the kosher guru or whatever it is. But this teichen, the stuff that you hear here, the hashkafa, the insights, the analysis, I mean, it leaves that other stuff in the dust. So you and I, we all know that this is the most controversial, provocative, in-your-face, gripping program. And there are thousands of listeners. It's Thursday evening, and now there's no Christian program before me. So all of the spillover from the Brenners, Talkline Communications Network, are now on. Thousands of people know about this program. Many people pass around stuff on the internet and see my WhatsApp and everything. And what am I trying to do? I'm trying to cover be'erech $200 l'shvua, just that I should be relieved from this terrible financial burden that I have. So I make that appeal to you, Rabbi Isai. I make that appeal to you again. Please, please, I plead with you. If you can't do it yourself, you might know people who can do it now. The people who don't want to advertise with me, it's very, very simple. You don't have to have an advertisement. And if you give me money, it's tax deductible. We can do it a tax deductible, but we can do more than that. If you say, like they say on National Public Radio, they say this program is sponsored by Sims or something like that. Or they say this is by E&I Real Estate Organization. Come on, nobody knows who E&I Real Estate Organization is. And as soon as you say that, the whole $100 or $200 a week that I'm given, that immediately is considered a business write-off. It's a business write-off. And therefore, it's totally deductible. It's a business write-off, and it's totally deductible. It's totally deductible. So, Myra Baisa, I apologize for the interruptions. Obviously, President Trump is calling me on the phone, and I'm forced to hang up on him because I'm doing something far more important. I'm talking to you, Rabbi Isai. We're 26 minutes into the program. Time for the third L'chaim. Let's get on with things. It's Zman Chayritz, it's Zman Hishchatzis. It's Yismach Hashemayim v'Sagel Ha'aretz. It's Yismach Hashemayim v'Sagel Ha'aretz, and we're asking for a new beginning. It's a Naya Rosh Hashanah. It's a new year. Rabbi Isai, just like you're worried about your taxes, you have to pay your taxes before April 15th. There are spiritual heavenly taxes, and believe me, helping out to fund this program, I'm an honov. The truth is, because I really should be asking for a lot more. If people would help me out a lot more, I'd be able to get my word out so much more, so much to so many more people, to the secular goyim, to the media, to the Gentiles. On the internet, we would have a much bigger presence. But at least let me get this radio program covered. So I was starting to tell you in this long-winded preparation about prostitution. And I've told you in the past, the Chazal say now that there's no Urim v'Tumim and there's no more Nevi'im, there's no more prophets. Where is the prophecy? Where does the prophecy reside? How do we know the will of God? The will of Hashem, how do we know it? Directions from God, how does he show it? The answer is, my friend, Nitna levuah l'shoitim. The simpletons are the ones who inadvertently blather the words of Hashem, the guidance. And I've said this many times. So therefore, I'm telling you that I was prescient, and that in the last few weeks, there was a meeting reported about in the Daily News that took most of the story from something called the Gay City News Afra Lepuma. And basically, Lambda, which is an association of Mishkevei Zohar, hosted a group of prominent politicians, including the DA of Brooklyn, Gonzalez, and they were talking about legitimizing prostitution throughout the state of New York. And you had that Alta Oisvav Jew boy liberal Gottfried. I understand he's been around doing liberal garbage for the better part of 40 years. And you had Gonzalez, and you have other Minevolis. There's one woman, I forget her name. She has now a sliver of Williamsburg. She just got in recently. I think she beat Dylan Mallah, whatever his name is. Oisvarfim, one after the other. And they're talking about legalizing prostitution. De Blasio came out against it because he's afraid it's going to lead to trafficking in women, where they force women, they take them from foreign countries and they imprison them, etc. By the way, this is not a quote-unquote family-oriented program. This is a program at 11 o'clock at night. Therefore, if people do not want to hear this, you want to make yourself, you're too innocent to hear this. The Gemara speaks about very provocative subjects. The Torah refers to it as Esnan Zoina. The Torah describes to us the Tanakh, Pelegish Begiva. The Torah that we read and that your children hear in shul on Minchen Yom Kippur is about all these intimacy, sexual improprieties. But if you want to play a game like the Gera, that once told me, the Gera Rebbe, the Gratschke is Tomim Machta Machor. Befehesia an gegen the Mishkav Zocher March, the Mitzada Gaiva in Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh, der Jugend und the junge Light wird ausgefunden. I'll translate. If we make a protest, like I was asking him, that the Gera should lend their hefty muscles, okay, instead of just pushing when the Rebbe comes in like some kind of mitzvah deraisa to run over people, they would actually have come and pushed around and made tumluch about the Mitzada Gaiva. So the Rebbe told me the gratschka, the fly in the ointment is, if we do that, our kids who are innocent are going to find out about Mishkav Zacha. And he said, not only our kids, he said, the younger light. Because you understand, we have married people who, when it says Mishkavei Isha, that a person shouldn't do Mishkavei Isha, so therefore we have people. So therefore, we have people who don't know what it's about. So this level of purity is a selfish type of purity. We're not saying to be matama everybody, but you have to weigh the good against the bad. And part of the reason we weren't far more successful in Eretz Yisrael as far back as 10 years ago in fighting this thing was because the Gera broke ranks. The Gera broke ranks at the same time that they would go into Meir Sherman and beat the living hell out of people from Yidden who they didn't like what they did to their Rebbe, whatever it is. In the same way they gave me death threats because I had the chutzpah to talk about this stuff on the Israeli radio. For that, they're there. But for the other stuff, never. Unfortunately, they weren't there. Is that a blanket condemnation of Ger? No, it's not a blanket condemnation. But let the chips fall where they may. You understand? Let the chips fall where they may. There's a story where Rav Steinman and the Ger Rebbe came to what do you call it? They came to Chaim Berlin. They came on their trip to America. They were in the mirror. I saw them in the mirror. They went to Chaim Berlin. And, the Rebbe comes in with these strong bulvanis. And, mishtupt. And they pushed one of the Rosh Yeshivas, one of the Rabbi Chaim Berlin. So there was some kind of a thing where everybody was paying attention to Rav Steinman, the Chaim Berlin. They weren't paying so much attention to Ger Rebbe, and the Ger Chassid, the Ger bodyguards was stooping. And somebody said, to try to impress the guy, the Rebbe, he said, we came here but Pekudas Rav Shach, or something like that. Like as if the Ger Rebbe and him, now they're good buddies with Rav Shach, they represent me. So the Rebbe turned to him and he said, tell me, you mean Rav Shach told you, he didn't use the word that I'm using, bulvan. Rav Shach told you, when you come to America, you should push around the Rebbe in Chaim Berlin. That was part of what Rav Shach wanted you to do as a Ger Chassid. You understand? Let's get to the reality here. And let's be able to see the warts on every single situation. So anyhow, they want to legalize it. And de Blasio is against it. It probably won't happen immediately. There's even talk, you hear this? There's even talk of making a compromise bill that prostitutes can no longer be arrested for plying their trade. Only the Johns is a secular word for the clients, for the customers. So it'll be usher for the men, but it'll be mutter for the Zionis. And that's the slice of salami technique. Now, that might go anywhere. It might not go anywhere. I'm telling you, Rabbi Sai, mark my words. Within 2 to 3 years at the most, and maybe sooner, there will be a giant push to legalize prostitution. Okay? Now, why are they doing it? And why is Lambda the one who's doing it? They're Mishkavei Zacha. So the answer is, first of all, they want to make it mutter for homosexual prostitutes. Second of all, there's a large amount. I got involved by saying the Gera because I was saying that this is a adult program. And therefore, if you want to remain innocent, you want to go at this late stage in the devolving culture, you want to go with that Gera Cheshvan as the younger light with Oisgefinnen. We hear no evil. You see, I'm covering my eyes. We see no evil. I'm covering my eyes. We hear no evil. I'm sticking my hands in my thing. And we talk no evil. Yeah, if you want to go and subscribe to this Chazarai, you can do so. But The other side of that coin is that the Satmar Rebbe back in the 70s, in the 1970s, or maybe before in the late 60s, said you have to teach your children all about Kedushas HaYesod, what it means and not to be touched inappropriately. He said, so it's recorded in the Sefer, the Satmar Rebbe Sefer, where this drasha was repeated and written down, that somebody interrupted and said, Rebbe, from a young age? And the Rebbe said, yes, because if you don't give it them at a young age, they learn it in the street, and that's worse. So we have the Sklerner Rebbe Zitzal, the old Sklerner Rebbe of Eliezer Zishia, who also got together Rabbeim to tell them to speak frankly to the kids about Kedushas HaYesod. We have the Satmar Rebbe, and on the other side we have the Geras. I'm not making chayzik, I'm just telling you historically who's proved right. When Ayani Akotin Yehuda Levin said you have to teach your kids how not to be touched inappropriately, and I was holding the carpet by the Gedolim at the Torah Metzora meeting, but who is correct? How many karbonis have there been since then? I can put together 960 karbonis at one point. How much of this could be ad hayom hazeh, can be rectified, can be prevented? Prevention, an ounce of preventions with a pound of cure if the parents tell their kids. So let's be blunt. Who's right? The Sklerner Rebbe, the Satmar Rebbe, people like Rev Avigdor Miller and I who follow them, or the Gerashita, or this and that? We only care selfishly for ourselves in impurity. There's no pure way of teaching kids about sneers. Really, you have an excuse for everything. Lethargy and to do nothing and to let the Mishkevei Zacha march in Yerushalayim, it's gewaltig. I'm sure the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to give everybody involved in that effort a knippenbeckel, just like a knippenbeckel here. Tell me something. Did anybody from a good? It's already out there. It's in the daily news. It's out there. There are meetings. Are we going to wait until the last minute and then we'll make our token display of fighting like OU and Aguda and the other garbage Chazirai do nothing meisters? In this respect, they are garbage. When they're doing this, they are making a tremendous srucha, a garbage. But what do I mean? Garbage smells and everybody doesn't like it. It smells bad. It doesn't pass the smell test. When the politicians and the media see the orthos are quiet, why can't the Aguda be the tail that wags the dog? Why can't they get their good friends in the Archdiocese and the Diocese of Brooklyn, the Archdiocese of Manhattan, and others? Why can't they make a press conference on the steps of City Hall and say, hell no, we don't want the Gehenna of prostitution? Why not? There are still some shaitim out there probably saying, prostitution is as old as history. And you know, they were always Zionists, and we were always very pure. You know, only Shalamis Bas Divri did something with the mystery. But you know, the Torah says, Yud Kai, Hashem put the name, Lemishpachas Haruvein, Haruvaini, the high in the Yud, to say that they weren't impure even in the timber of Mitzrayim. So we have a prototype that in Gulis, we are not injured by all the licentiousness. And there are tipshim and oxen out there who don't want to understand that the amount of illicit intimacy activity that is going on in Klal Yisrael, in Orthodox circles today, and I'm not talking about modern Orthodox. I'm talking about Bachrim who wear black hats on Shabbos. I'm talking about so-called Beis Yaakov girls who went to schools, and they reach a certain age, it's gefährlich. And you know, these people from Aguda, the OU, Lubavitch, Satmar, the Moises, the this, the Manhigim, the rabbis, it's not all a one-way street that they should sit on the dais by dinners and we should go over and shake their hands and be proud to post with pictures with them. There's going to be a din v'cheshbon time. Rabbi say, wake up. You had a responsibility. You were part of a moisid. What did you do to address these problems? When is there going to be a session in Aguda to discuss the fact that so many gittin that are given today are not kosher gittin because they're predicated on prenups? That means where they sign, the man signs away. It's not enough he'll have a ring in his nose when he gets married, but he signs away already that in case the woman, who increasingly, as Rabbi Herbst is reputed to have said in his bezin, that 85 to 90% of the people who initiated Din Torah is to break up the marriages of the women and to make sure that the women get it. So the modern Orthodox have them signing prenups, because if not, they're all becoming agunis. Not that the problem is, Rabbi Sai, that the Batei Din are politically correct, and they're saying, no, if the lady doesn't want to live with the man, she's entitled to a get. But that's not the halacha. The halacha is it has to rise to the level of chayav l'garsha. If not, but they didn't should tell the lady, go back home, go to therapist, go back home. We're not going to preside. We're not going to give you a letter that makes you into a quasi aguna with all kinds of modern terminologies like roy laseis loget, ain't sikuyim, there's no chance of shalom bayis. You understand all of this stuff. So what do they do instead? The moderns write a prenuptial agreement. So you go to a person like Rabbi J. David Bleich, who's a professor and he's a rebbe or whatever he is in YU. He's not exactly the ultra right-wing Panavisher. And yet him and many other Talmidei Chachamim and people who are involved in Gittin tell you that there's serious shilas about prenups. Okay? There's serious shilas about many of these prenups. There's a coercion aspect. What happens if that woman remarries and has children? Rabbi Sai, when you think about it, it could be that X amount of people in the Haredi Orthodox community who are doing marriages, they're mamish marrying people who are l'chol hapachas safek mamzerim. When was the last time at an Aguda convention they had a session in depth about this? No. When was the last time they would have a session? You know, they speak about people being active and active. You know, they have this Aguda Live thing that Avi Schnall, in between wasting his time with other things and not being present on the day of the vote of the assisted suicide and allowing it to pass narrowly in New Jersey. Okay, he's busy having Aguda Live and encouraging people sitting there with Shai Markowitz and the gentleman who's been given Abba Cohen, and they're talking about how important it is to be involved in Aguda. Yeah. So what is the involvement in Aguda? What are they doing about the homosexualization of textbooks in New Jersey that passed? What is Schnall doing and the activists they want? What are they doing about what Kalish did with the textbooks voted for the Schmutz in Illinois? It's disgusting. What is Aguda doing in their own backyard now to take preemptive strikes, to organize something strong, to nip this prostitution thing in the bud? You know how this is going to destroy? Don't listen to the idiots who say it's hot shatan mit ins. As it is, ins are sins. Ins are doing lots of sins. And if it becomes mutter, if marijuana becomes legal in New York and New Jersey, it's going to increase it quantifiably. And who's pushing this? The gays are pushing this. Why? For a few reasons. The more shtufei zima we do, the more we're involved in schmutz. You understand? The less we'll look askance at them. So they want every last vestige of a holdout of people who are standing up for morality, whether they be lahavdil, religious Christians, religious Islamists, religious I don't know what, or Orthodox Jews. They want us to be nichshel, and by being matter, prostitution, lechatchila riba, the devil is accomplishing this. And then there's this other thing. It seems that a rather lie, according to the gay news, it seems that a significant amount of the Zionists today, the weirdos who mutilate their genitalia and go from men to being women, a lot of these transvestite people become Zionists also. So we want to protect their what do you call it? Their fun and their parnasa. It's a parnasa in midav zenas. Their was Wilman from the poor tranny. They have to be protected. That parnasa. So we'll even make a compromise bill. The John, the Zlob, he'll get the busha. They'll take pictures of him and they'll have to pay knosses and everything else. But the lady, the tranny or the other Zaina, she'll be able to keep her money. You understand? Where is Agudas Yisrael on all this? Not even an op-ed piece from them. Garnished, mit garnished. Garnished, mit garnished. Moving right along. Satma is so makbid on the Knesset Haminim, as I've said before. But, and they come with all these things. Remember this big tumult, the Bechiris now, this is all Oyevites, they give all the videos they made, all the tools they made. Maybe they're right. I'm not weighing in on whether they're right or wrong. But hypocrites, all of that kanayas only applies by the Tzionim. You've eaten too much drella, too much gala. You've fressed too much cholent. The stain is on your lapel, okay? On Thursday nights, you're fressing too much at Gottlieb's. And therefore, when you're fressing, you understand, the Chassam Sofer famously had a tshuva, that there was a kid who needed, a child who needed, for mental reasons, whatever it is, to be placed in an irreligious institution. The problem was that irreligious institution, the food that they gave had chol of akum. And the Chasam Soifa, I seem to recall Paskind, that since the chol of akum is mitamtem, it verstopped the heart and the intellect of the person, even though the kid needed it for a fool. I'm not saying all the Poskim would agree, so that you shouldn't even institutionalize the kid. I'm just drawing an analogy, a comparison from this. The people who are busy kissing up for the Estanzoina, the boisters, they can't see the forest for the trees, the Satmara and the others, they can't see the hypocrisy. No, for the Knesset Aminim, the Rev. Fall Bloom, the late Kashav Rav, he saw the hypocrisy. He said the same thing applies in America. Just because it's in Golis, you're not allowed to make kutchin you, muchin you, and play footsie with the liberal Mishigoyim that they're honoring. And what do I mean? I mean this. The Haraidim, listen to the title, the Haraidim Matzah Factory. There's all kinds of matzah factories, but Haraidim, you understand, it typifies that it's all of the Haraidim community. So that's the one, Min HaShamayim, that Scott Stringer and the loser Askunim, the lowlife idiots who have no seichel, who prostitute our Torah and our God's values and everything. So they brought Scott Stringer, the maneuver controller, and they show a picture of him, everybody schmeicheling, and he has the big pole with the matzahs, with the unleavened that he's about to stick into the oven. Boy, oh boy, I wish that these people should eat those matzahs at their Pesach. These rabbis, quote unquote, askonim, they should be the ones to eat the matzahs that Stringer made, stringing us all along. He supports every single type of Nevola. Of course, that's who, You take the Jewish rituals. This started out in 1982 when what's his name was running, Lou Lerman, who later turned, he was intermarried at the time, but he later mamish converted to Catholicism. I was supporting Lerman. You know what I was supporting him about? We asked the Shalber of Miller. For the morality, we were supporting him. That means that Miller held that the morality is so central that even if he's intermarried, we have to support him. You understand? But there was Bekovet Reich. Mashenkin today, the politician being intermarried is the least of the concerns of these kiss-ups. The politician could be one of those who voted that a baby who's born alive from a botched abortion should be left to be murdered, or for homosexual marriage and everything else, and we still support them. And people like Scott Stringer, we bring him in for matzahs, for our Jewish rituals. So back in 82, some person, very nice guy, I know him, was asking for a big Hasid community, and he took off his Streimel type kudiment on Chalamoid Sukkos, and he put it on the head of the intermarried Lou Lerman. He prostituted back in 82, 35 years ago, 37 years ago. And since then, it's time and time again, it's sickening and disgusting. You bring in a low-life scum of the earth. It's not enough they all come, the politicians, to be Menachem Oval, and we take pictures of them with the pointy Cohen-headed Saturday Night Live Cohen-head yarmulkes on their heads. You understand? It's a new din. When a goy comes to a Jew in the synagogue, he has to put on a yarmulke. Where is it? Maybe he's imitating the Pope because the Pope wears a yarmulke. Yeah, so he has to put on the yarmulke. And we go along with it. It's patronizing us. It's condescending to us. It doesn't mean anything. And by the fact that we encourage them to do these things, some of the politicians have their own knitted yarmulkes and their own special yarmulkes. They don't even have to take the pointy yarmulkes. They're already so used to harlotizing and prostituting the Jewish people with their various visits that they have their own yarmulke in the hip pocket. Rabbi Sai, Satmar are hypocrites. All this tumult, and then they go the next day to kiss up to the next thing. Scott Stringer come in, we'll make matzahs, we'll give you matzahs, michled demeiranusa. It's the food of emunah and betachin, of godliness. You understand? Garbage. Terrible. Okay. Now, there was an article recently on Yeshiva World News. And I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember what the article was about. Something to do with Eretz Yisrael and something to do with Aguda and Degel and Shas politicians. And a guy who, there's a picture of him, I think he's a Lubavitcher named Rabbi Michael or Michael Dobry. I want to give him a shout out. He's very proud. And he said, listen, Aguda is somewhat better than Degel. They're not perfect. And Degler and Shas, they sell out. They don't care. As long as there's money for Panovich, their meisters, they'll sell out. And he says, why don't they stand up in the elections for Eretz Yisrael Shlema? So obviously it's Lubavitch, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, Eretz Yisrael Shlema uber als. So anybody who disagrees, God forbid, with Mashiach Hashem, and I'm friends with Lubavitch. I daven Lubavitch Shul. I just don't countenance the shtussi parts of Lubavitch, of Ger, of Satma, of Aguda. I'm an equal opportunity abuser. Don't give me the stupid pills, because I'm not stupid. And I refuse to take the pills. Here's my fourth l'chaim of today. Chaim to Lubavitch, Ger, Satma, Aguda, etc. And refuah shleim to all their miscreants. By the way, this program, the Hashkafa, should be a refuah shleim l'imi morasi, Masher, Basmatl, Etel Basmatl, Ani Yehuda, Ben Masha, and David Ben Chana, the Turk Shar Chali Yisrael. Rabbi Sai. So Michael Dobriyetz, when are they going to stop being so interested in the money for themselves and for Panavision, for their moistures and Shas? And when are they going to start being concerned for, what do you call it? Eretz Yisrael Shlema. Okay? That's the big priority by him. So I want to ask this Lubavitch and Michael Dobriyetz. I have a single spot, whether he's a Lubavitch or whatever he is. But what are you doing about what the Kashavarov said in America? What is Lubavitch and Shem Tov running around in Washington, kissing up to all this stuff to politicians, but now you're worried about Kedusha? Didn't the Rebbe hold from the mitzvah of Sheva Mitzvah Neyach? How come Shem Tov and his son in Washington, and how come all of the other Mishulachim and the Mishulachaises that have their own conventions, how come these people don't go and lobby against the shmutz and immorality? And how come they continue to vote for the shmutz and immorality? And I forget, recently at the prostitution legalization thing, their newly elected person, who I think beat Jesse Hamilton, a lady who claims she's half Jewish, she's this, she's that. I don't know if her name was Castro, or what her name is, Julie something, or Carr. Why aren't the Lubavitch's Michael Dubry busy going and speaking to her about the fact that the gewachste Rebbe in Eil, the Rebbe geschickt sind entgegen dem Mishkav Zochen mit die Aporische, mit anderen Sachen. No, was der Rebbe sagt, wegen Eretz Yisrael, als Schleim ist mir interessiert, in der andere Sachen, auf dem attackiert mir der Degel and der Shas, and he says a good is better, but Degel Shas. By the way, he doesn't even know that, okay? He has his little compromises because probably Lubavitch and Eretz Yisrael get something out of the Agud as opposed to getting something out of Degel and Shas. It's disgraceful. Michael, Michal, wake up and smell the coffee and see your inconsistencies and see your hypocrisies, okay? Now, Baruch Hashem, we have to say that Feiglin, there's a hood that was going around like a big gaiva. Feiglin was that Kippah Shuga. He's more right wing than the Tanyui and this. He wants to go on the Har Habayas. He wants to go wherever he wants to go, and he wants to do stuff. And he was going to get. He said, we're going to hold the financial ministry, and we're going to control the cash strings. Get used to the idea, like a big bald guy with this Feiglin who suddenly turned pro-Feiglach and wanted to have a lesbian or a sympathizer of Mishkav Zocher lesbianism running on his ticket, who wanted to legalize marijuana, who was turning the other cheek to Shabbos. Baruch Hashem that Feiglin didn't get in. Baruch Hashem. Now, Baruch Hashem. Now, I saw during the campaign a lot of videos that seemed to show that one of them I saw that Netanyahu was talking to a group of Haredi soldiers with beards and paying some of them and everything else. He was talking about how he was giving drushes of how we have to get all the Haredim to serve in the army and to this and that, etc., etc. And people like Michael Savage, the Ox, they'll scream about why the Jews shouldn't, there's no serve in the army. Why should the Orthodox, why should the friar be told to sacrifice and not the Jews? This is a complicated question, which I don't have time to fully address, nor do I know that I could successfully give the exact answer that we have to answer to them. But one of the answers is not to do the blathering, the jabbering, and the stupidity that most of the Orthodox people have when they speak to the irreligious about this. Like, what's his name? Savage is downright caustic. Let them go. He goes, the Orthodox Jews had a rally. You know how he goes like that? You know, the same way he does it on Jesse Jackson, he does it on the Orthodox Jews. You understand? So he's a very mixed up person, Savage. One day he's pro-Orthodox, he gets into a biblical religious mood. The next day he's criticizing, he's cursing out, he's this and that. He says, let them go. Why are they making their demonstration in New York? Why don't they go to Tel Aviv where a mother lost her child and do this? In other words, the fact that, first of all, you shite the Savage, they don't have to protest in Tel Aviv, they do protest in Eretz Yisrael. So Stam is a shaita. But the point is, I just want to concentrate at this time in the remaining few minutes that we have. The point is that I saw very disturbing things. They have cuts from Gaffney, from Litzman, and Netanyahu addressing the Fruma, and it really seems that there's compromises going on more and more. And recently, they're going after Jewish girls, Haredi girls. One of the Haredi girls they're going after, and they're threatening, etc., etc. Sometimes they do it because of the families of these Haredim. You see, it's like a communist government there. The Israelis. It's like a communist government. The Israeli government, it's a small country, and they mamish can keep tabs on people. So they know some of the leadership type people, if we can schwachen them up, if we can coerce them into silence by threatening and going and making the moves as if they're going to draft their kids, and they start to do these things when the kids are 16 or 17. Somebody compared it, Pasha, to what's called, excuse my terminology, women trafficking. You know, they take women from other countries and they force them into the prostitution trade, and et cetera, these terrible things, which is the only reason that de Blasio, or the main reason de Blasio is opposed to legalizing prostitution, is he thinks that a lot of them will come from foreign countries that will be brought here as slaves of immorality. You understand? But the point that I'm making is, this is really, this Yid told me it's a little bit like trafficking, what's being done with these women. They're being trafficked, so to speak. They're being brought, they start chasing after them at 16, 17. They send them threatening letters if you don't show up to your appointment to discuss your draft status, knowing full well they're Haredim or they're religious, but just to hassle them, to break down the reserve. And gradually to get a certain amount of the schwache ones into the army, where they will be, excuse my French, there's a good chance that they will be candy for the men folk there. They will be debasula eyes. They will be made metame like Shem and Dina. And then we want to know why people shouldn't go in the army. Now, one of the few things that Yaakov Spivak said in a clip that he sent around on YouTube, or maybe Savage put it out or whatever, where in 20 minutes with Spivak, the one point that he made with Savage that seemed to be somewhat effective was he spoke about the immorality in the army. And we have to discuss the immorality as it affects the men and the women. That's one of the things we have to say. We also have to say the fact that even in United States, liberal Western society in America, there's an exemption for clergy and for seminarian students. So what are you making it into something uniquely Orthodox? Then we have to talk about the fact that Ben Gurion made a certain deal, okay? Then we have to talk about the fact that we believe that there is a partnership, whether you secularists understand it or not. There is a partnership between what we're doing spiritually for Torah, et cetera, and what you're doing physically, okay? Just like there are certain people who physically go around in the police cars and they do stuff, and there are other people who have office jobs inside. Not everybody's for every job, but it does create an irritation. And the Pikrim in Klal Yisrael should be figuring out a way that we could show a lot more sensitivity to those people, because when the savages in the media use this thing, it's like class envy. It creates a tremendous problem. And so there has to be some kind of a solution to it. I'm not smart enough to know the solution, but I'm smart enough to know that if you don't have seichel, you shouldn't be on national talk shows speaking things that are above your pay grade in terms of being able to answer. Okay? Now, right now, Pope Benedict just came out with a tremendous statement about morality, and he said, and it's creating waves because it's seen as an attack on the new pope, and it's a reference to the old ways. And he says some values that are more that go against good values, that go against stuff which intrinsically are evil, cannot be subjected to trade-offs. these good values even surpass the value of physical life. So he says, for some things you have to be moise nefesh to fight against this, and you can't say the lesser of two evils and this and that. I'm sorry to say, but Chochma B'Goyim Taimen, the Pope came out because of the rotgut that's going on in his church, and people are saying, and I've said it on this program a year ago already, he's as Nevi Vaita, he should come out and speak out. And guess what? He must be listening to Yehud 11's program, 11 at 11, because he mamish did it. What are we taking from this? What the Goyim do is it's a message to us. Chochma B'Goyim Taimen. The fact that in Ohio they voted and the governor signed the bill that for 4 to 6 weeks we can start to hear a fetus's heartbeat, finish, no more abortion. So at the same time they're legalizing abortion, and to kill a baby by benign neglect even after it's born in New York, in Ohio, in the Midwest, they're asking it. There are some good signs, but all of these good signs are rechiv on us to do much more than we are doing, my boys say. Okay, the massive parental outrage against the sex ed bill in Washington, liberal Washington state, caused the legislature to pull it back. Okay, in Canada, a father who's trying to fight that his 14-year-old son or daughter should not be able to take these hormone things for his 14-year-old daughter, he's being told you can't control your own kids. This is coming to America also. The American College of Pediatrics is talking about the parents are losing control. There's much, much more to say now, Rabbi said, but we don't have time to say it. Join my WhatsApp at 718-469-6999. Help me out with the finances. Contact me on my phone number. Text me or contact me on WhatsApp. Please, I need your help. Rabbi said, spread the word of the hotlines. Again, the hotline number and the YouTube is 11 at 11. The hotline number is 641-715-3900, extension 247656. Until we meet again next week, a good Voch, a good Chodesh, a good Tamid, a good Yor. It's just the new year. We should hear Besuas Toivus.